Joshua, aside the infrastructural deficit, of our system, data-wise and electronically, that Biodun just pointed out with mandatory transmitting of these results, what are the challenges? What are the issues you see with that particular change?
So the truth is, I don't regard them as such a challenge in terms of the technology. Why do I say that? Technology is way advanced. Compared, all of us sit here and analyze the issues of banditry, and we find out that from the bush, they are doing their TikToks, they are doing their videos. I'm not saying the problems are similar in all the locations, but we know how far technology has gone. In fact, one of the telecoms company recently signed a deal with Elon Musk's company for satellite internet connectivity. So we know that if there's proper investment, and this is something that Nigeria should be facing, proper telecoms and internet coverage across all the 774 local government areas, because again, the electoral materials will get to these places one way or another. So why don't we also start chasing development, or the little things that can get to them to be able to prosecute this? Because the reason we are trying to reform is because we don't trust each other. Election is a game, or is a popularity contest that is based on trust. Okay, I love this person, I want this person to be our leader, let's go on. But we know that this person is going to try and influence it, this person is going to try and influence it. So it becomes a whole lot of issue. So, but my problem has always been the fact that INEC never built any infrastructure for election. And I've always said that there's need to start building probably special electoral infrastructures, maybe 62 villages. It won't take much to have a center in maybe one of the schools, since that's what we use. Solar power it, put some satellite internet connectivity there year round, start developing this. Let's go and look at the budget of INEC. It is one of every election cycle, INEC gets one of the largest allocations both on paper and off paper because of how the things they need to prosecute. But there isn't any willpower per se to actually enable INEC to be independent, because independence doesn't only just come from your money is available or we appoint the chairman. There's a whole lot that surrounds the word independence, including building the electoral infrastructure that we need, because the idea of thinking that we don't need this thing, we don't need the logistics. INEC doesn't have a say in how things move. Electoral material moves. It has to liaise with National Union of Road Transport Workers. So this is where the country needs to think about building its infrastructure. What's our transport system like? They say a logistical nightmare. If you start a business here in Lagos and say you want to send goods to Kano, you will have logistical nightmare. Many businesses have shut down, and these are some of the issues we see in the election. Then when you take it to the greater issue of voting and all that, bimodal now has to be used for accreditation. So we need the appropriate telecoms communication. So let's create a framework. Let the Ministry of Communication come in and sit down. Let's talk with all the telecoms companies. I heard the INEC chairman complain, I think it was last week or last 2 weeks, that the reason they are having challenges with this is because the telecoms companies have not been able to properly address their network issues. So what do they need? Because the telecoms company are complaining of things, right of way, taxes, some of these things. So when you have a vision, you address some of these problems, because this election is the bedrock on which our democracy thrives. Now, on the issue of vote buying, we've not addressed campaign issues, party funding. There is no audit. No party, PDP has never been audited that I know of. APC has never been audited that I know of. And these are some of the things we need to start seeing. Politically exposed persons should have their own special system that monitors and tracks them, because we know that they can operate via proxy, via direct intervention in terms of vote buying. But we need a large and comprehensive system that brings all these things into focus, because if we don't know how much APC and PDP is worth in a year, how much each person contributes as party member, most parties are not funded by their members, and this is a big problem. The only place where you see members donating their personal funds is in churches, and to some level you can account for it. Religious and charity organizations, you can account for it. They are audited to some level. Why is it not the same for parties? Because this issue of one person, when I covering a story one time, you hear for instance Wike sponsoring an election in Cross River State. Why is it? And what does it mean? He provides buses, he provides the cash, he provides the media, the money for media spend, and nobody asks him, oh, how do you do this? How do you do that? How did governors become leaders of parties in their states? Because they are the ones that they have their hands in the coffer, and so they can pull out money that you can't account for. That's how security votes end up being campaign funds. Check Nigeria's timeline. Each time we are close to election, there's crisis, because money needs to be, go into different places. So the 𝘃𝗵𝗁, ICPC, NFIU and co, they really need to sit down with the National Assembly. I'm tired of the National Assembly passing laws without necessarily doing proper consultation, because again, you can't be a judge or jury in your own case. They know that passing this law on paper looks like we're addressing the issue of vote buying. Like I told Onome before we started, Soludo came out to say each community that he wins an election in or something was going to give them 10 million naira. Why was he not brought in for question? Yes, he has immunity. He's going to do that for 8 years. But he's not the only person who openly does this kind of declaration. And that tells you that it's entrenched. And tomorrow he might go to the Senate, and once he doesn't have an interest currently, he passes something that looks like, until we start getting the big fishes, then it doesn't make any difference, because the party agent didn't give himself money to go and share. So you arrest him, and then nothing comes out of it. A phone call is made and he's released.